Okay. Small rant because I cannot bother myself to type this all out on keyboard, and I really, 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 really need to get this out, so. Recently, alright, there's a better way to start this. I have been listening to AJR for over 11 years now, and God, they're everything to me. My biggest inspiration in life, to be honest. Oh my God, there's just, for now, let's just say that they hold a very, very special place in my heart. Those three brothers, anyway, I'm not really actively in the fandom. Um, I used to be an avid AJR fan, like, involved in everything fandom wise, but I've calmed down a bit since then. I still absolutely adore their music. It is everything to me, and for the longest time, I wondered why. Like, their living room will always be my favorite. I am aromantic, but their love songs are just so nice. I especially love Living Room. But they grew up and they started making music that, you know, was a lot heavier. It was deeper than just love. In fact, I don't think there are many love songs written now. But the thing is, with the click, I could sense a shift in their music's energy, the tone. And, I was like, huh, okay, this sounds a lot realer. Because Living Room is almost like a fantasy kind of love album, but then it got real. It got real very fast. And I liked it a lot. And then Neo Theater and OK Orchestra came around, and I was like, okay, this stuff is starting to get really, really real. And I sort of understood that the pandemic definitely had an influence on that, since we were stuck inside for basically an entire year. But there was also an aspect that just felt more personal, especially to me as a teenager growing up in this time. Their songs, even though they're all adults, have this theme. The more serious songs they write, anyway, have this theme surrounding growing up. And not just themselves, but watching other people grow up and reflecting on the way that you've grown up as well, and how people change. And the first big hit to me emotionally was Turning Out, because although their interpretation of it is bound to be much different than my interpretation of it, I myself, as a young transgender individual, found Turning Out to just be very, very personal. Because the main message of the song was still growing up. Everyone else has moved on, but you're still, you have to catch up. And, with being trans, it's like, I went through puberty really, really early. I was only about 8 years old when I hit stage 3, I believe. And I happen to be one of the more lucky individuals regarding hormone replacement therapy, because I got to start testosterone when I was 13. But I still have this sort of feeling that, because I'm trans, I'd be considered a late bloomer, and that I have other people to catch up with. And even now, I can see the way that all of my classmates have, all of my assigned male at birth classmates have grown, and how they've changed through puberty, and it all happened so fast, and I feel stuck. Because there's only so much that hormone replacement therapy can do for me. And at this point in time, even though I identify as agender, as a transmasculine individual, being sorted into the category of male at school, I feel like I've been left behind because there are these aspects about them that are just so much more masculine than me. And while I'm personally okay with that, if I just shut off the idea that other people perceive me and that there's a certain way that masculine individuals in society should be, I'm okay with myself because I am generally ambiguous on the more masculine leaning side, which is exactly what I wanted, but grouped together with a bunch of other male individuals, I feel compelled to match them, to mirror them. I'm not seen as masculine enough to fit in with the category that I'm being put into. Even though that category doesn't actually apply to me, which is crazy. But there's this idea that I haven't caught up yet, and that was the first thing that really hit hard, especially when I was still in 7th grade and I really hadn't started T yet, but I knew that I needed to because the dysphoria was just so suffocating. It was really hard. It was a really hard point in my life back in 7th grade. I was very, very much struggling. I've come a long way since then. And even though dysphoria isn't really much of a struggle to me anymore, there are still other things in my life, notably my various mental health issues, and more importantly, what I'm trying to cover on right now as I'm speaking is my neurodivergence. I have ADHD and autism, and so learning is hard, but also experiencing the world is a struggle sometimes. I have tics based on sensory processing issues. I have autistic meltdowns where I go nonverbal because of how overwhelmed I am. I really can't focus on one thing at a time because of the lack of dopamine I receive from certain tasks and the lack of dopamine I have in general, preventing me from focusing even on things that I do enjoy. But I just, for some reason, a lot of their songs felt a little too personal to me. Like, damn, this is almost exactly like what I experience in my everyday life, how I perceive the world. And if I'm not mistaken, Ryan is the main lyrics writer. He's not the lyrics writer for all of their songs. I know that Jack has also played a very huge role in writing a lot of their lyrics. Um, and then I saw them for the third time in my life here in Chicago for an official concert. I've seen them many other times here, but not for, concerts where they've actively sold tickets. And it was an experience. I was sort of afraid that I would have had a sensory overload of some sort. But no. I've only ever had a sensory overload one time at an AJR concert. I find myself enjoying it too much to really care about how overwhelming everything in my immediate vicinity is. And I was very much emotionally overwhelmed because this is the biggest thing they've done yet. It was an experience that, God, I have so many regrets about that, but at the same time, I'm so glad I was there to see it happen. And at the end of the concert, I learned something that, admittedly, I'm surprised I didn't figure out sooner. Because all of the signs were obvious, and I probably should have pieced it together from the deep connection I felt with their songs. But I learned that 5 years ago, the youngest brother, Jack, was diagnosed with OCD. And in that moment, everything just came crashing down on me, but in the best way possible. Everything made sense to me now. Why the songs just felt so right to me. Jack's various behaviors, and I felt seen in a way. To learn that one of my favorite musical artists, one of three of my favorite band of all time, is neurodivergent just like me. I felt understood. And I was given hope because it's been a dream of mine to. Every time I go to see AJR, I can't help but think that one day that's going to be me up there on that stage performing for thousands of people in front of me. It's been a lifelong dream. Music has always been a part of my life. And learning on that day, which is such a big event on its own, that Jack has OCD, that he's neurodivergent, that he experiences the world in almost the same way that I do. It was groundbreaking to me. And I thought, yes, if he can do this, I can too. I was just so happy to know that there's someone like me achieving the dreams that I have. It's proof that I can do that too. And it was such a big moment. He rarely ever talks about it, and because of that, I didn't even know. I found out when he announced that on stage. Honestly, I'm a little surprised that I am still really surprised that I didn't know, that I hadn't figured it out sooner. But learning that on that day was monumental, and it's going to take me a very, very long time to forget about it if I ever even do. And I just, I find it so crazy. Because 14,000 people, more than that even, if I'm not mistaken, to be brave enough to talk about that kind of stuff in front of 14,000 people, night after night as well, because they had a show immediately after in Wisconsin the next day. And I'm assuming it's a part of the script, so he says that every night that there's a show in front of thousands of people, that is the bravest thing ever. To open up about one of the things that you are most insecure about, because he doesn't talk about it ever. It's just so inspiring. I I really just I don't know what to say except just continuously year after year thanking AJR for even just existing, because I would not be the person that I am today had it not been for them. It's insane. I I'm really at a loss for words. It's just amazing to me. But yeah, learning about Jack being neurodivergent, I felt this special kind of connection, you know? As someone who is also neurodivergent, it made me happy to know that there are people like me who are successful in the things that I want to be successful in. I can do it too. I can't wait to be up on stage one day playing for thousands of people just like that. Whether that be in music or if I never really do follow through with my music career and I end up doing something like volleyball or I just I'm just so happy. I keep turning it around in my head, thinking about it, just sitting here, like, glad that it ever happened. Because had it not been for my attendance that day, if I didn't go to that concert, I would have never found that out. And I would have never gotten the motivation and inspiration that I needed to continue on with what I'm doing right now. It's crazy to me. Just how big of an impact such a simple statement like that can have on other people. How important it can be to be open about yourself and honest about the things you struggle with. It really puts a perspective on life in general.